Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. There's something gentle in the quiet of your breath, in the stillness between heartbeats, in the soft dark of your room. But even here, in this hush, you are not alone. Inside you, right now, countless lives stir. They do not look like you, sound like you, or think as you do, and yet they live in you, with you. Tiny, unseen, and ancient, they thrive in the warmth of your body. This is not poetry. This is biology. You are a world, a teeming, breathing planet, a superorganism. More of your body is not you than is. For every human cell that makes up your skin, your blood, your bones, there are more microbial cells alongside them. Bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea, in numbers that stretch beyond imagination. And most of them live in harmony in your mouth, your skin, your lungs, but especially in your gut, the rich, winding passageway at the center of you. They don't just float or hide. They build, they break down, they signal, they help you digest your food, train your immune system, and send messages to your brain without ever speaking a word. You didn't invite them in. They've always been there, long before memory, before language, even before birth. They were waiting. You inherited them from your mother's skin, from the milk you drank, from the breath of others. The dirt on your fingers, the food you touched, they colonized gently, forming a living fingerprint inside your belly. Now they live as part of you, yet not entirely you. They do not have thoughts, exactly, but they influence yours. Some help you stay calm, others stir your hunger. A few can make you feel foggy, slow, settled, as if your emotions are not entirely your own. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you are layered. Your body is not a single voice, it's a choir. And like any good symphony, it needs balance, harmony, cooperation. Some species of bacteria flourish when you eat leafy greens. Others bloom when you're stressed, or still, or in love. They shift with the seasons, the foods you choose, the places you go. They're shaped by your childhood, your choices, and even your thoughts. You are not simply shaped by your genes. You are also shaped by your guests. And yet, they are not invaders, collaborators, companions. It can be strange to think of yourself as shared, as inhabited. But this is the nature of life. It is never one thing. It is always many folded into each other. The more scientists look inside us, the more they find this truth, that health is not isolation. It is relationship. Your gut bacteria don't live beneath your awareness because they are unimportant. They live there because they've always known how to care for you without asking for credit. So tonight, as your mind slows and your limbs soften, you might take a quiet breath and feel them there. Not in a way that alarms you, but in a way that reminds you of how deeply connected you are to nature, to others, to the vast, invisible world within. You are not alone in your mind. You are not alone in your body. You never were. And perhaps, as we move further into this journey, you'll begin to wonder not just what lives inside you, but how it lives, and what kind of home you are offering, because what blooms inside you whispers through everything you feel next. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a vast landscape, not one you can see in a mirror, but one you carry always. This landscape isn't made of trees or grass. It isn't filled with birds or breezes or stones. It's darker, water, warmer. It is your gut, and it is alive. Not just with muscles and food and movement, but with creatures, billions of them, so small they cannot be seen, yet so essential they shape everything about you. Now, picture a garden, not one you tend with gloves or shears, but one that is shaped by your breath, your meals, your emotions. The walls of your intestines curve like footpaths. The mucus that lines them is rich and thick, like fertile soil. And living within that soil are the microbial citizens of your gut, a dense and delicate ecosystem of astonishing variety. This garden does not bloom with flowers. It blooms with life, invisible, intricate, and always moving. There are helpful bacteria, the gardeners. They trim back overgrowth. They weed out trouble. They keep the peace. There are builders, the ones that turn fiber into fuel, that help you make vitamins, that soothe the lining of your intestines like soft rain. There are sentinels watching for invaders, training your immune cells to tell friend from foe. N. Sometimes there are weeds, bacteria that, when left unchecked, grow wild and overwhelming. They are not evil. They are simply opportunists. Your gut is not a battlefield. It is a negotiation. Every moment of every day, billions of microbial species interact in shifting, shimmering balance. And like any living garden, it is deeply sensitive to change. The food you eat becomes their food. Every bite is a signal. It's a bowl of lentils. Fiber for the fermenters, bacteria that love slow, steady digestion. A sugary soda, an easy feast for microbes that feed on simple carbs and sometimes grow too fast. There's no judgment in this, only information. Your garden listens, and then it responds. Even your emotions matter. Stress releases hormones that alter the terrain of your gut. The garden senses the storm. Some species retreat, others bloom. It's like rain falling too fast, too much, it's too soon, and puddles forming where roots once grew. Antibiotics, too, can flatten the garden, clearing out both good and bad. They leave behind barren patches, and it takes time and care and gentleness to replant what was lost. But nature is forgiving. Your gut is resilient, and with the right attention, the garden always tries to grow back. There's something poetic in that, isn't there? That inside you, even now, is a world rebuilding itself with every breath you take. And unlike the gardens we walk through above the soil, this one does not sleep through winter. It does not follow seasons. It follows you. When you travel, it changes. When you fast, it shifts. When you fall in love, it listens. When you are heartbroken, it mourns with you in its own silent, microbial way. Even your memories might ripple through this place. New research suggests that the gut microbiome affects your mood, your memory, your risk of depression. That the more varied your garden is, the more emotionally resilient you might be. Diversity in this tiny world is strength. Monocultures, like too many of one plant in a field, leave you vulnerable. A diverse garden protects itself. It weathers stress better. It adapts. And how do you grow a diverse garden inside? By feeding it with life. Whole foods, fermented things, colorful plants, little dirt, sometimes in the form of unpeeled carrots or unsanitized greens, and, just as important, rest. The gut garden heals while you sleep. It restores, rebalances, renews. Some bacteria only become active when you are still moving in slow waves of chemical conversation, clearing waste, patching lining, resetting your rhythms. And while your body rests, they work patiently, quietly. You don't have to manage it. You don't have to supervise. You only have to support, to listen, to notice. If you felt foggy or anxious or disconnected, sometimes the answer isn't just in your mind. Sometimes it's in your belly, in the balance of species, in the forgotten parts of yourself, the ones that do not speak in thoughts, but in reactions, cravings, calm, and unease. It is easy in our modern world to think of ourselves as singular, as individuals. But when you realize you're a garden, you begin to think differently. You begin to care for yourself, not like a machine that must be fixed, but like an ecosystem that must be nurtured. And in that care, something shifts. You begin to slow down at meals. You begin to crave colors, textures, life. You begin to listen for the quiet feedback that comes hours later. The feeling of lightness or heaviness or harmony. You begin to tend to yourself. And that is where healing often begins. Not with the pill or a rule, but with attention. So tonight, as you rest, your gut garden continues. Its slow, nocturnal work. It hums with a language of chemicals. It rearranges the balance of species, prepares you not just to digest your food, but to face the next day with a steadier mind. Your garden doesn't ask for much. It's only that you remember it exists, and that sometimes the truest health blooms quietly in the dark, in the deep, in the warm, winding places within. What will your garden grow next? Your thoughts feel like they happen in your head, sharp, echoing, private, housed behind your eyes and forehead. But not every thought begins there. Not every mood, every urge, every ripple of calm or unease. Some begin lower, much lower, in the folds of your belly, in the soft, coiled world of your intestines, where bacteria, too small to see, are writing letters you can't read. Letters not made of ink, but of molecules. Imagine this. You wake up feeling oddly anxious. There's no reason, no thought behind it, but something in your chest is fluttering, and somewhere in your gut, an unease, like a whisper before words. What if that whisper wasn't imagined? What if it was real? Not psychological, but microbial. Inside your gut, your microbes are constantly producing chemical signals. They don't have mouths. They don't form sentences, but they are expert chemists. They build neurotransmitters, the same molecules your brain uses to feel and respond. GABA, serotonin, dopamine. These aren't just brain chemicals. They're also microbial messages. Nearly 90% of your body's serotonin, in fact, isn't made in the brain at all. It's made in the gut. It's not by your human cells, but by your microbes. This changes everything. It means your mood may be shaped, in part, by what lives inside you. Not just by what you think, but by what is being whispered, molecule by molecule, up through your nervous system. Your gut and your brain are in constant dialogue. A slow, chemical conversation. It's not just from top down, but also from bottom up. The route is physical through the vagus nerve, that long, winding bridge of sensation that connects your belly to your brainstem. But the messages themselves, hey, they are made of molecules. Picture them, tiny, shimmering shapes, floating, like signals in the dark. Some soothe, some warn, some tell your brain, we're full. Others whisper, we're in danger. Still others say, we need sugar, we need fiber, we need more light. You don't hear these messages in words. You feel them. As tension, as comfort, as craving, as fog. This is not pseudoscience. It is neurogastroenterology, a growing field exploring how your nervous system and digestive system shape each other. Scientists have found that changes in your microbiome can alter behavior in mice. That transplanting gut bacteria from an anxious mouse into a calm one can make the calm mouse act anxious. It is not proof that microbes control your mind, but it is proof that the signals coming from your gut matter and that they can shape mood, memory, and decision-making. You are not a puppet, but you are a system, an open one, a complex one, alive with voices not your own. This should not frighten you, it should free you, because it means that your sadness might not be weakness, that your fog might not be failure, that your anxiety might not be a flaw in your thinking, but a message from the deeper parts of your being. And messages, unlike mysteries, can be listened to. They can be decoded, and they can be answered. So how do you answer the chemical messages of your gut? You begin by slowing down, by asking not just what you feel, but where. Is it in your chest, tight and fast, or in your belly, soft and uncertain? You begin by nourishing, feeding your microbes what they love, which is not always what your cravings say, but what your deeper self needs. Fiber, fermented foods, polyphenols, diversity, stillness. When you care for your gut, you change the chemical conversation. You shift the tone of the messages. You soften the edges of the whispers. The bacteria respond quickly. Some die off, others multiply. The balance changes, and with it, the way you feel. Of course, it's not instant. It's not magic, but it is real, gradual, like tuning a radio, like clearing fog from a mirror. The gut also speaks through the immune system. A layer of immune cells lies just beneath your gut lining. They too listen to the microbes, and they respond with inflammation or calm. Inflammation is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, a background hum, enough to make your mind tired, enough to slow your thinking, enough to make joy feel distant. But again, this is not permanent. The gut changes, it responds, it heals. Think of your microbes as scribes, not writing stories, but shaping the emotional atmosphere of your body, not commanding, but suggesting, not controlling, but contributing. Every meal is a message back. Every act of rest, a reply. Every breath, every stretch, every sip of warm tea. Speak to your microbes, too. The body is always in conversation with itself. And the more we understand this, the more gently we can treat ourselves. So tonight, as you settle deeper into stillness, note that the chemical signals within you are shifting too, not in chaos, but in rhythm, not in silence, but in quiet conversation. You are not alone in your mind. You are not even alone in your feelings. You are a landscape of signals. You are a library of molecules. You are a body that listens, a brain that feels, and a microbiome that speaks in sighs of serotonin. And perhaps, if you lie still enough, you can hear what comes next, because just beyond this moment, something else waits, a deeper intelligence, woven through your gut's very structure. There's a knowing in your belly that you've always felt, a hunch, a flutter, twist. When something feels right, it sits softly in your stomach. When something feels wrong, it churns before your brain can explain. This isn't imagination. This is sensation. And it begins in a place far older than thought, deep inside you, curled beneath your ribs and winding through your lower torso is a second brain. Not a metaphorical one, a real biological structure. Laced through the walls of your gut is a network of over 500 million neurons. These cells don't simply carry messages from your stomach to your head. They process, they coordinate, respond, they think in their own silent, sensory way. Scientists call this the enteric nervous system. It's part of your nervous system, but it operates independently. Even if the spinal cord were severed, this belly brain would continue. It's quietly orchestrating the gut's complex dance of digestion, but it doesn't stop there. Your second brain listens not just to food, but to mood, not just to movement, but to memory. It holds your stress, it feels your calm. It speaks to your main brain through waves of electrical impulses, hormones, and the constant quiet language of molecules. For decades, we thought the brain was command central, that the gut simply followed instructions. But now we know that traffic goes both ways. And in some cases, it begins down below. The enteric nervous system is ancient. It evolved long before creatures had skulls, before eyes, ears, or limbs. Life learned to sense the world through the gut, to process nutrients, to detect danger, to decide, keep going or stop. In this way, your belly was your first brain. And even now, it remembers through reflexes, the way your intestines contract when they sense stress. It remembers through chemistry, the way your gut lining releases serotonin, influencing mood. It remembers through structure as hundreds of millions of neurons map out the inner geography of your digestive tract. And yet, this second brain is not self-aware. It doesn't wonder or dream. but it does know. It knows how to time the flow of food, how to signal for help when things go wrong, how to calm or quicken its pace based on what it senses. It also knows how to collaborate because it doesn't work alone. All around these neurons live your microbiome, billions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, all releasing their own messages. They don't speak in electricity, they speak in chemistry. But the two systems, neurons and microbes, listen to each other. It's a partnership. The bacteria send signals, the neurons interpret. Then they respond by shifting blood flow, by altering motility, by triggering hormones that rise upward to your brain. This is what scientists call the gut-brain axis. Not a single road, but a braided web of communication, neural, hormonal, immune. It means that what happens in your gut is not just digestion, it's dialogue. You eat a meal, and the gut reacts first with enzymes, then with muscular waves, then with neuronal feedback. If something feels off, too greasy, too fast, too foreign, the second brain decides how to handle it. Sometimes gently, sometimes not. If you've ever had a gut feeling about someone, if you've ever felt butterflies before speaking, if you've ever lost your appetite when anxious or felt nauseous from dread, if you felt the second brain at work, these are not emotional metaphors. They are physical truths. Your belly fuels your life, and in turn, it shapes how you live. Even in mental health, the second brain plays a role. Disorders like depression, anxiety, PTSD often show up in the gut before they surface in thoughts. There's emerging research suggesting that gut inflammation can affect emotional regulation, that poor gut function can cloud the mind, that healing the gut can brighten the brain. We are only beginning to understand how deep this connection runs. The second brain also handles its own emergencies. If a virus enters your system, the enteric neurons help coordinate your immune response. They signal your body to clear the invader. They adjust the gut environment to flush, protect, defend, and they remember. Not like a brain storing memories, but like a force that shifts after a fire. The second brain adapts. It rewires. It learns. But like any complex system, it is sensitive. Too much stress, and its wiring falters. Too little variety in your microbiome, and its signals grow confused. It can become overactive, triggering discomfort, pain, dysregulation, or it can go quiet, sluggish, unresponsive, slow to repair. That's why care matters, not just for your mental self, but for your whole self. To care for your second brain, you must listen. Care to the foods that leave you feeling light and the ones that weigh you down. To the rhythms of your appetite, your sleep, your digestion. To the quiet cues that signal imbalance before symptoms shout. You must feed your gut wisely with fiber, with fermented foods, with color and diversity. You must rest, breathe, stretch. Let stillness return the system to calm. And above all, trust it. Your gut remembers more than you know. It does not tell stories, it does not speak in thoughts, but it does know how to protect you. It does know when something is wrong. It does know when something is right. And if you slow down enough, you may begin to hear its signals, not as noise, but as intuition. So tonight, as you lie here, quiet, warm, and still, know that your second brain is watching over you, processing every shift in your body, every breath, every silence, keeping balance, keeping time. It is a brain without language, but not without wisdom. It is always with you, always listening, always learning, and just beyond its humming silence, something else begins to stir. Because while the second brain learns from experience, it also holds traces of the very first ones. You arrive in the world not as a blank slate, but as a vessel, empty in some ways, but ready to receive, to absorb, to become. The first breath you take is cool and new. But before that, something else enters you. It's not air, not light, but life, tiny life, microbes, pass from mother to child. Through skin, through birth, through milk, through breath. This is the beginning of your bacterial imprint, archaea, your first inheritance. Not written in DNA, but carried on skin and carried in milk. A whisper of the outside world, transferred directly into your still-forming gut. If you were born through the birth canal, your first microbes came from your mother's vaginal and gut flora, lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, and other friendly settlers. If you were born by cesarean, your microbial guests likely came first from skin, air, and environment, a different starting lineup. Neither path is wrong, but they are different. And what enters you in those first moments may echo for a lifetime. Your immune system, still naive, watches closely. It learns from these newcomers, not through lectures, but through exposure. This one is safe. This one helps digest milk. This one stays quiet unless provoked. Your immune cells nod in silence, taking notes, forming patterns. This is the beginning of tolerance. The early peace treaty between self and other. Then comes feeding. Whether by breast or bottle, your microbes feast too. Human breast milk is not just nutrition for you. It is a carefully designed microbial symphony. It contains oligosaccharides, complex sugars you cannot digest, but your gut bacteria can. They bloom with each drop, multiplying, forming colonies, laying the foundations of your internal ecosystem. Each touch, each cuddle, each breath of air in a dusty room, each finger chewed in curiosity adds more species to the mix. You're being shaped, not just by love and language, but by dirt. Yes, dirt, the invisible kind. From the floor, from food, from the world. As you crawl, your hands press into carpets, soil, wood. You giggle and drool and chew. Bacteria enter through your mouth, and slowly, your microbial diversity grows. In rural villages where children grow up close to animals, microbiomes are even richer, full of species unseen in urban populations. And this diversity may protect them, lowering risks of allergies, asthma, autoimmune confusion. In modern cities, we sanitize, we scrub, we spray, we isolate, we mean well. But sometimes, in our effort to keep out illness, we keep out wisdom, too, because early microbial exposure trains the body to balance, to react, but not overreact, to sense danger, but not to see danger in everything. If the training goes wrong, the body forgets how to trust. It flares at harmless foods, panics at pollen, tags itself in confusion, all from a childhood without enough quiet, microbial conversations. And it's not just the immune system that's shaped. Your nervous system learns too. Animal studies show that germ-free mice raised in completely sterile environments, develop differently. They are more anxious. They have altered brain chemistry. Their stress responses are heightened. But when these same mice are colonized with healthy gut bacteria, their behavior softens. They explore more, came more easily. This suggests something profound, that your early microbial environment might influence how safe you feel in the world, that the calm of your gut can shape the calm of your mind. Even human studies hint at this. Children exposed to diverse environments, farms, pets, varied diets, tend to have lower rates of mood disorders and allergies later in life. Of course, it's not all cause and effect. The story is complex. Genes matter, experience it matter, but so do microbes, and the early ones, the ones that entered you in your first days. They set the tone. Imagine your microbiome as a painting. The brushstrokes of childhood lay down the background, the texture, the palette, the feel. Later experiences add detail, but the base is already there. Some of your bacteria are with you still, the same strains you received as an infant. They have replicated thousands of generations. They have survived illness, antibiotics, fasting, growth. They are part of you, not by choice, but by time. Others have faded. Some were lost when you were sick. Others displaced by diet or stress or change. but the imprint remains. A microbial memory written into the folds of your digestive tract. Sometimes it shows up in small ways: how you digest dairy, how you react to fiber, how your body responds to fasting or fermented foods. Other times it echoes emotionally in your resilience, in your gut instincts, in how you return to calm after stress. You carry your history in more than your bones. You carry it in your belly, and this imprint isn't fixed. It's not fate, but it does mean something. It means that the story of your health started long before you were old enough to notice it, and now that you do, you can begin to care for it, to rebuild lost diversity, to invite back balance, to offer your second brain a better map. Because healing isn't always about doing something new. Sometimes it's about remembering something old, a microbial inheritance, a quiet ecosystem, a forest planted in your earliest days. So tonight, as you drift between thought and rest, you might imagine them, your first microbial friends, the ones who shaped your digestion, who taught your immune system not to fear, who helped build your sense of self before you had a word for me. You are not alone, and you never were. Not even in the beginning. And as we move forward, we begin to ask, what happens when this balance breaks? There are days when sadness arrives quietly, like a gray mist curling at the edges of thought. No reason, no story, just a softness, a heaviness, a distant ache. Other days arrive with calm lightness in the body, laughter close by, a sense of peace without cause. You may have called it a mood. You may have called it a phase. But what if it was something else? Something not from your past, but from your present, from the tiny world inside your belly. Science is still learning how deep this connection goes, but the whispers are growing louder that your microbiome, the vast community of bacteria in your gut, may shape not only how your body feels, but how your mind moves through the world. And it begins with chemistry. Inside your gut, certain microbes make molecules that affect the brain. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA aren't produced only in the brain. They are also made in the gut, not by your cells, but by your microbes. It's estimated that nearly 90% of your body's serotonin, a chemical tied to mood, sleep, appetite, and well-being, is made in the gut. But it doesn't stay there. These chemicals can trigger nerve endings, influence immune cells, can send messages along the vagus nerve, along its winding cable that links gut and brain like a quiet telephone line. Imagine your gut as a garden. When it's healthy, blooming with balance and biodiversity, sends up signals of safety, molecules that say, all is well, we are nourished, rest is okay now. When the garden is unwell, overgrown with weeds, thinned by antibiotics, inflamed by processed foods or stress, the messages change. Inflammation rises. The gut lining becomes less selective. Immune cells become more reactive. The signals that reach the brain carry a different tone, one of unease, agitation, exhaustion. This isn't theory, it's observation in both animal and human studies. Scientists have found that changing the composition of gut bacteria can change emotional behavior. Germ-free mice raised in sterile conditions with no microbes show higher levels of anxiety and poor memory. But when given healthy gut bacteria, their behavior calms. They explore more. They adapt. In one experiment, researchers transferred gut microbes from anxious mice to calm ones, and the calm mice became more anxious. The microbes, somehow, had carried not just matter, but mood. In humans, the story is more complex, but it follows similar threads. Studies have found correlations between gut microbiome composition and mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and even autism. While these relationships are not fully understood, the patterns are clear. When the gut suffers, the mind often does too. Inflammation is one clue. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, often driven by gut imbalance, has been linked to fatigue, brain fog, and low mood. When the gut barrier becomes leaky, molecules that should stay confined begin to escape. They trigger immune responses that ripple through the body and reach the brain. This is known as the gut-immune-brain axis, a loop of feedback and influence, and it may explain why. When you're emotionally overwhelmed, you sometimes feel it in your belly: tightness, bloating, loss of appetite. It may also explain why, when your digestion is calm and effortless, your thoughts feel clearer, as though the fog has lifted. Memory, too, may be shaped by these microbial signals. Your brain's hippocampus, a region critical for learning and memory, is influenced by brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a molecule that helps neurons grow and form new connections. And what helps regulate BDNF? Your gut, microbiome. Some bacteria increase BDNF expression. Others may suppress it. Once again, the composition of your internal world shapes the clarity of your mental one. Think of the mind like a garden of its own, a place of recall, decision, reflection, and think of your gut as the soil beneath it, rich, alive, and full of influence. If the soil is imbalanced, the flowers struggle. If the roots are sick, the leaves droop. But when the ground is diverse and well-fed, the mind, too, seems to blossom. And what about joy? It's that light feeling, the spark in your chest, the urge to sing, to move, to connect. Could microbes play a part? Some scientists believe they might. Certain bacteria, like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, have been shown to reduce anxiety-like behavior in animals. In human trials, probiotics containing these strains have led to improved mood and lowered stress in some participants. It's still early. No pill, no perfect strain. But the evidence suggests this, that emotional health is not only neurological, it is biological, chemical, and ecological. You are not just your thoughts. You are also your microbial patterns, your gut permeability, your inflammatory load, your dietary history, your early exposures, your sleep cycles, your stress levels. Mood is not a mystery. Systems can shift. This brings hope, because it means that despair may not be permanent. That joy may be coaxed back, not with force, but with quiet care. By tending to your gut, you tend to your mind. This does not replace therapy. It does not ignore trauma, but it adds a layer, a biological foundation beneath your emotional world. And how do you tend this layer? With patience, with nourishment, with rhythm, a diet rich in whole foods, colorful vegetables, prebiotics and probiotics, life with movement, rest, connection, touch, stillness, and trust that even in moments of sadness, your body is working to rebalance, that your microbes, as ancient as life itself, are trying to speak to you, not in panic, but in chemistry. Tonight, as your body softens into rest, some of those bacteria are making GABA, a calming neurotransmitter that helps you sleep. Others are metabolizing fiber into short-chain fatty acids that lower inflammation and protect your brain. Still others are sending messages up the vagus nerve signals that say, safe now. You can let go. You don't have to manage all this. You don't have to decode every signal. You only need to listen, to feel, to care, because your microbes are not strangers. They are your companions, and some of your emotions are simply their way of asking for balance. And when you begin to give it, something beautiful happens. Clarity returns. Lightness peeks through. Not always loud, but steady. And just beyond that lightness, it's a road, a highway of nerves, stretching from your belly to your brain, carrying every signal that matters. There is a road inside you. You've never seen it. You've never walked it, but it is always there, curving softly between two great centers of feeling. One is your belly. The other is your brain. This road is not made of asphalt or stone. It is made of fibers, soft, thread-like strands of nerve that hum with quiet messages. It's called the vagus nerve, from the Latin vagus, meaning wandering. And indeed, it wanders from the base of your brainstem, down through your neck, past your heart, your lungs, into your stomach, your intestines, your liver and pancreas, your very core. It is the longest cranial nerve in your body, a soft electrical ribbon connecting your thoughts to your digestion, your heartbeat, your breath. And it carries more than commands. It carries stories, not told in language, but in sensations. Roughly 80% of its traffic flows upward, not from brain to body, but from body to brain. This means that most of what the vagus nerve does is listen. It listens to the stretch of your stomach, to the fermentation of food in your gut, to the shape of your breath, to the hum of your heartbeat, to the condition of your microbial citizens. It listens and it reports, softly, constantly, without thought or effort. The brain, hearing these signals, adjusts its state. If the vagus hums with calm digestion, is smooth. The gut is at ease. All is well. Then the brain may lower its guard. Breathing slows. Muscles relax. The mind unwinds. But if the gut sends distress, tension, bloating, pain, inflammation, imbalance, then the brain responds in kind. Tension, worry, fatigue, irritability. A body in unease becomes a mind in unease. You've felt this before, haven't you? A gut instinct, a flutter before a hard conversation, a loss of appetite in grief, a sudden clarity when your stomach is full and calm. These are not coincidences. They are communications. The vagus nerve is the main highway of the gut-brain axis. It allows your two centers of consciousness, the head above and the belly below, to remain in dialogue. And the tone of this nerve, its flexibility, responsiveness, calmness matters deeply. This is called vagal tone, and it affects how easily your body shifts from stress to rest, from fight to recovery, from guardedness to openness. High vagal tone is associated with calmness under pressure, faster recovery from stress, better digestion, lower inflammation, emotional resilience, a sense of grounded safety. Low vagal tone, on the other hand, can leave you stuck in a loop of anxiety, gut issues, and mental fog. The good news? Vagal tone can be trained, nurtured, gently restored. Every slow breath you take, every hum, every moment of stillness after a meal, every stretch, every yawn, every sigh, stimulates the vagus nerve. You don't need to force anything. You just need to create space, and the nerve responds. Even cold exposure, a splash of water on the face, a walk in the morning chill, can awaken the vagus, reminding it to pay attention, to soften, to carry peace upward. And your microbes, I send messages through this same road. Certain gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids, which help soothe inflammation and support the integrity of the gut wall. When the gut is healthy, these signals pass easily along the vagus nerve. When it's inflamed or imbalanced, those messages become distorted or silent. In this way, your emotions may begin in your intestines, not in thoughts, but in textures, the stretch of a gut wall, the flow of enzymes, the balance of bacterial populations. The vagus nerve acts as the translator, a carrier. It's a thread between worlds, and it is sensitive. Trauma, chronic stress, poor sleep, even loneliness, they can dampen vagal tone, cutting the signal between gut and brain. But healing begins with awareness, with attention to breath, with food that feeds the gut, and moments that nourish the self. Even laughter stimulates the vagus nerve, so does singing, chanting, humming, and deep, mindful breathing from the diaphragm. These are not just soothing acts. They are biological resets, ways of reminding your nervous system that safety is still possible. You don't need to know the language of the vagus. You already speak it in rhythm, in breath, in the silence between thoughts, and your vagus listens without judgment. It doesn't ask what you've accomplished. It asks, how are you right now? And then it answers your brain accordingly. So tonight, as your body sinks deeper into the quiet, Your vagus continues its gentle watch. It listens to the slow winding down of digestion, to the faint fermentation of fiber, to the steady pulse beneath your ribs, and it reports, all is well, we are safe. It is time to rest. The brain listens and softens. Sleep, too, is part of this loop. Deep sleep strengthens vagal function. Good vagal tone supports deeper sleep. Together, they form a spiral of recovery, of reset, of peace. You don't need to do anything but allow it. Your body knows. Your vagus knows. Your microbes know. And this night, like every night, they carry you quietly forward along the invisible road within. What will tomorrow's messages carry? And how will your belly shape the thoughts you haven't yet had? Balance is a quiet thing. You don't always notice it when it's there, but you feel its absence in the odd moments when your thoughts stumble, when your stomach seems unsure of itself, when the familiar rhythm of your body feels off. Inside you, your microbiome is always shifting. Bacteria rise and fall. New species arrive with a meal, a kiss, a breath. Others disappear, starved or crowded out. And yet, like a forest, your gut strives for equilibrium. Not perfect sameness, but harmony. In a balanced microbiome, each species plays a role. Some ferment fiber. Others keep pathogens in check. Some build the gut wall, while others calm inflammation. Together, they form a living community, an ecosystem shaped by millions of years of evolution. But balance is delicate, and sometimes it breaks. The causes are many. Antibiotics, while life-saving, can clear out whole bacterial neighborhoods. Broad-spectrum ones don't discriminate. They target the good, the bad, the quiet helpers. After just a few days, diversity plummets. The once rich ecosystem becomes barren, like a forest after fire. Some species never returned. Diet, too, plays a role. A steady intake of ultra-processed foods, low in fiber, high in sugar and additives, starves the good bacteria. They fade, leaving room for opportunists. Species that thrive on sugar grow unchecked. Their waste products irritate the gut lining, triggering low-grade inflammation. Stress, that invisible current pulsing through daily life, also disrupts microbial peace. When you're anxious, your body releases cortisol and other stress hormones. These can change how your gut moves, how much mucus it produces, how tightly its walls hold together. The microbiome senses this shift. Species that prefer calm may recede. Others, the more aggressive, inflammatory kinds, may bloom. Even lack of sleep has an effect. In studies, just 2 nights of poor sleep can alter gut composition. The body, tired and confused, communicates those changes to the gut, and the gut replies with symptoms that echo upward. Imbalance has many faces. It might look like bloating or a sudden sensitivity to foods that once felt fine. It might be brain fog, the kind where words slip away and concentration stumbles. It might be fatigue that doesn't lift after rest, or it might be emotional mood swings. Irritability, sadness with no story. The term scientists use is dysbiosis, a disruption in the normal balance of the gut microbiome. Too much of one kind of bacteria, not enough of another. Or too few species altogether. Sometimes, dysbiosis causes inflammation. Not the sharp kind that brings fever or pain, but the quiet, chronic kind. A low simmer that wears down the gut lining. That lining is supposed to act like a filter, allowing nutrients in, keeping invaders out. But when inflamed, it can become more porous, a phenomenon some call leaky gut through these loosened junctions. Tiny bits of undigested food, bacteria, or toxins can slip into the bloodstream. The immune system, seeing them, reacts, sends messengers of defense, cytokines, histamines, inflammatory signals. These messengers don't stay local. They travel through the body, reaching joints, skin, brain. You might feel stiff. You might break out. You might notice anxiety that hums even when your thoughts are still. Your body, in its wisdom, is responding to a breach. But the breach began inside, and yet imbalance does not mean broken. It means the system is adjusting, asking for attention. It's like a city where traffic has lost flow. Some streets are too crowded, others are empty. The signals are misfiring. The rhythm is off, but with care, it can be rebuilt. Restoring balance begins with gentleness. Start by removing what disrupts: high sugar, processed additives, excess alcohol. Not with punishment, but with curiosity. Notice how you feel after meals, which foods nourish you, and which leave you unsettled. Then, offer what the gut craves: fiber from vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains. Fiber feeds the fermenters, the microbes that produce short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, which soothe the gut wall and reduce inflammation. Add fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, that carry living bacteria. Old friends. Returning home, move your body. Even a walk can stimulate gut motility, helping food move, helping bacteria stay in balance. Sleep. Real, regular, slow sleep. It allows the gut to reset. Some gut bacteria follow circadian rhythms. They rest when you rest, and most importantly, breathe. Stress management isn't just for the mind. It's medicine for the gut. Slow, diaphragmatic breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, which tells the gut, you're safe. Digest. Heal. In some cases, imbalance runs deeper, and that's okay. Testing, guidance, probiotics, all have their place. But healing doesn't always come from something new. Sometimes it comes from returning to something old. A rhythm your body remembers. A peace your gut once knew. Balance is not perfection. It's not the absence of bad microbes. It's the presence of enough good ones doing their jobs, keeping the peace. Your gut doesn't ask for purity. It asks for diversity, for tolerance, for space to do what it does best. And you are the host. It's the steward of this internal forest. It's not its ruler, but its caretaker. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, perhaps you can imagine this imbalance, not as failure, but as feedback, a signal that the ecosystem within you is asking to be seen. It does not judge, does not demand. It simply speaks, and as the night deepens, so too does the quiet work of repair. Some microbes fade, others multiply. Mucus is rebuilt. The gut wall seals, signals soften, balance returns slowly like dawn, not all at once, but in gentle layers of light, and just as one species rises to fill the space of another, so too does something else begin to stir, a memory of food, not just as fuel, but as partnership. Because long before we had names for bacteria, long before we knew what microbes were, humans found a way to eat that fed them to dot fermentation, preservation, flavor, and function. And so, from the quiet repair of imbalance, we begin to remember the ancient rituals that once kept our internal world whole. Long before microscopes, before science could name a single bacterium, humans already knew, in the way hands know dough, in the way mouths remember sour and sweet, that some foods held power. Not power in their taste, but in their transformation. Milk became yogurt, cabbage became kimchi, grains became sour, alive, and safe to eat. This was fermentation, one of the oldest food practices on earth, not invented, but discovered, accidentally at first, and then intentionally, repeated, refined, passed down, and with each bite of those aged, bubbling foods, our ancestors fed more than hunger. They fed life, the tiny, invisible life that would shape their gut, shape their immunity, shape even their mind. Fermentation is not cooking. It is not heating or seasoning. It is time, is the art of waiting, of letting microbes do what they do best, Bacteria and yeasts break down sugars and starches, turning them into acids, gases, alcohols. The food changes, flavors deepen, textures shift, shelf life expands, but something else happens too. The food becomes alive, teeming with beneficial bacteria, lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, and others, the very same ones that still live inside your gut. These foods were not created to treat the microbiome. The word didn't even exist. And yet, somehow, they served it perfectly. Every culture had its own sacred ferment. In Korea, kimchi, spicy cabbage, aged in buried jars. In Japan, miso, a salty paste made from fermented soybeans. In Ethiopia, injera, a spongy sourdough flatbread made from teff. In Eastern Europe, sauerkraut, cabbage fermented into crisp tang. In India, lassi and idli, alive with good bacteria. The Middle East, labneh, thick and tangy from long-set yogurt. Even drinks carried this life. Kombucha, kvass, pulque, tapach, kefir, each a bubbling history, a microbial celebration. These were not fads. They were wisdom, ancient, collective, and earned. And through them, humans unknowingly practiced what modern science is only now remembering, that health is a relationship, not just between human and food, but between human and microbe. When we eat fermented foods, we invite new bacteria into the gut. We seed the system, not with strangers, but with cousins, familiar species that speak the same molecular language. These newcomers help balance the gut. They compete with pathogens. They restore diversity. They nudge the immune system back into calm. And perhaps, just as important, they bring with them flavor. Sour, tangy, sharp, earthy flavors that remind the body of aliveness. Fermented foods are not bland. They are awake. Their taste is a whisper from a time when food wasn't sterile, when preservation didn't mean packaging, but patience. But modern life moved fast. Too fast for fermentation, canning, refrigeration, pasteurization, all good. Inventions, all protective. But in the race for shelf stability and mass production, we left something behind. We began to fear bacteria, all of it, as if all microbes were disease. We bleached, boiled, irradiated. We ate foods that were clean, yes, but also empty, deprived of microbial richness, and our guts, once nourished by daily doses of fermented life, grew quieter, less diverse, less resilient, not broken, but disconnected. The science caught up later. In studies, people who consume fermented foods regularly have been found to have lower inflammation, greater microbial diversity, and, in some cases, improved mood and resilience to stress. One Stanford study found that just 6 servings of fermented foods per day could significantly increase gut diversity and decrease inflammatory markers in healthy adults. And while 6 servings may feel like a lot, a spoon of yogurt, a sip of kombucha, a few forkfuls of kimchi, it is not foreign to ancient diets. It was normal. Fermented foods weren't side dishes. They were staples, part of every meal. Not because of science, but because of taste, tradition, texture, trust. Your gut remembers this, even if your habits have changed. It remembers the tang of pickled vegetables, the cream of slow-cultured dairy, the sour of wild grains, and when you bring these foods back, something inside softens, not just digestion, but identity, because fermented foods are not just functional, they're cultural. When you learn to ferment, you join a human lineage, older than recorded history. You become a caretaker again of jars on a counter, for bubbling mixtures that smell strange and wonderful. You wait, you taste, you listen. It slows you down, and in that slowness, healing often begins. If you felt disconnected from your body, from your meals, from your sense of center, perhaps the answer is not subtraction, It's not removing foods, not avoiding joy. Perhaps the answer is addition. Bringing back the microbes you are meant to meet. You don't need perfection, just an invitation, a spoonful of sauerkraut, a glass of kefir, a wedge of aged cheese, a bowl of miso soup on a quiet night. The bacteria will do the rest. They will pass through your stomach, some destroyed by acid, some surviving. They will settle, briefly or longer, and join the conversation inside your gut. They won't speak loudly. They won't demand, okay? They will offer, and your gut will feel the shift. Digestion will soften. Inflammation may recede. Mood may lift, not as a miracle, but as a remembering. And so you return, gently, to what your ancestors already knew. That fermentation was never about preservation alone. It was about participation in the great, slow living rhythm of life. Tonight, as you rest, somewhere in your gut, the descendants of ancient bacterial cultures are doing their work. They are breaking down fibers, calming your immune system, whispering safety to your vagus nerve, minding your brain in molecules in silence. You are not alone. We are here, and we have always been here. And just beyond that microbial hum, another quiet influence begins to rise, the emotional residue left by touch, by loneliness, by connection. Because bacteria don't live in jars alone. They live in relationships, okay? And they move through our lives in ways more intimate than we ever imagined. You are not only shaped by what you eat. You are shaped by who you love, by who touches you, by who leaves, and your microbes. They feel all of it. You might imagine your microbiome as a sealed garden, an internal world closed to the outside. But it is porous. It is relational. It changes not only with food and sleep, but with closeness. Every time you hold someone's hand, a tiny exchange occurs, not just of warmth, but of bacteria. Skin-to-skin contact allows microbial passengers to switch hosts. Some stay only minutes. Others may take up quiet residence. They learn your immune system. They join the dialogue in your gut or on your skin. They become a part of you. A kiss is even more intimate. 10 seconds of kissing can transfer over 80 million bacteria. The mouths merge, briefly, biologically. Microbial ecosystems blend not perfectly, not permanently, but meaningfully. In long-term couples, oral microbiomes begin to resemble one another. Shared meals, shared air, shared sleep. They blurred the boundaries between individuals. We carry pieces of each other. And it's not just romantic love. Children born into families with pets have greater microbial diversity. Siblings growing up together share core species in their guts, regardless of their genetics. We are not only shaped by genes or diet. We are shaped by our social lives, by proximity, by shared touch, by communal environments. Even grief leaves a microbial echo. Loneliness, prolonged, painful, has been linked to measurable changes in the gut. In mice, social isolation leads to decreased microbial diversity. In humans, feelings of disconnection can alter gut permeability, increase inflammation, and shift which bacteria thrive or fade. The body does not separate emotional pain from physical need to be touched, to be seen, to be loved. These are not luxuries. They are biological requirements. Your microbes evolved with this understanding. They expect closeness. They flourish in community. Not just with food, but with people. So when you hug someone, you're not just sharing warmth. You're sharing information, immune cues, molecular histories, okay? Microbial blending that softens the edges of solitude. In one study, cohabiting partners were found to have more similar skin microbiomes than siblings raised apart. Even after decades, even when genes differed, it was closeness, not blood, that created similarity. Our bacteria, our communal dot, but modern life is often sterile. We move through the world, touching only surfaces. We sanitize, we isolate, we live alone, we eat alone. And so, sometimes, our microbiomes suffer in silence. They grow less diverse, less adaptive, less connected. Loneliness becomes more than a feeling. It becomes biochemical. The stress hormones of isolation affect the gut wall. They influence which bacteria survive. They signal to the immune system, be alert, something is wrong, okay? And the immune system responds. It inflames, it shifts priorities, it reallocates energy toward defense. But there is no pathogen to fight, only absence. And yet, in that absence, the body defends anyway, like a house bracing for a storm that never comes. The gut, confused, slows its rhythms. Bacteria that once flourished in a social body begin to fade, and the symptoms appear: bloating, fatigue, mood swings, cravings, not always because of food, but because of disconnection. The answer is not only in probiotics, it is in presence, to touch, to laugh with someone in the same room, to share a meal, not just nutritionally, but spiritually. In one small study, people who reported greater social support had more diverse gut microbiomes, not due to supplements, not due to fiber, but due to connection. Your gut listens to your life. When you are held, it loosens. When you are seen, it digests. When you are kissed, it celebrates. Even grief changes the gut. The death of a loved one often disrupts appetite, not only from sorrow, but from physiology. Grief increases cortisol, the stress hormone that affects the gut lining, the gut rhythm, the gut bacteria. Some species diminish, others, inflammatory ones, rise. It's as if your internal world mourns, too. But then comes comfort, a hand on your back, warm food brought by a friend, tears shed not alone, but in arms. And through these small gestures, your microbes hear the signal. We are still connected, and healing begins. You may never know which bacteria entered you from a friend's shared bite, or which ones vanished when you stopped being kissed. But your body remembers, and just as loneliness alters the microbiome, belonging restores it. Community isn't just emotional safety, it's ecological safety. Your microbes, like you, do best in diversity, in contact, in cooperation. So, as you rest tonight, imagine not just your own body, but all the others who have shaped it. The mother who held you, the friend who hugged you when you cried, the partner you kissed, the pet who licked your face, the thousands of small encounters, each one leaving behind traces. Some of their microbes live on in you, carried quietly, blended invisibly. Souvenir of connection, and perhaps, without knowing it, you've passed pieces of yourself on. 2. We are not as separate as we seem. We are networks. We are overlapped. We're colonies of memory. And somewhere in your gut tonight, an old microbial friend is still carrying the chemical echo of love, or grief, or simply the warmth of not being alone. So, what will tomorrow bring? Another hug, another spoon shared, another echo of connection. Because life, even at its smallest, is always shaped by others. And just beyond that circle of closeness, a quieter question lingers. Who, then, is truly choosing what you crave? Hunger is one of your oldest instincts. It arrives before reason, before language. A quiet pull toward something warm, or salty, or sweet. Sometimes it's gentle, a hum in the background. Other times it's loud, urgent, demanding, specific. I want chocolate. I need bread. I'm craving something crunchy. You may think those voices come from your mind. It's from habits, memory, emotion. And sometimes they do. But other times they come from deeper, from below the chest, beneath the ribs, winding into the folds of your intestines. From your microbes. They do not have mouths. They do not think, but they can signal. Send sometimes. They do it well enough to make you believe their cravings are your own. You are not the only one at the table. You carry trillions of microbes in your gut. each one a silent guest, each one thriving on different nutrients. Some bacteria flourish on sugar, others bloom with fiber. Still others prefer fermented starches, polyphenols, or amino acids. When you eat, you feed yourself, but you also feed them. And in turn, they respond, not with thanks, but with chemical messages, tiny molecules that enter your bloodstream, your vagus nerve, your brain. Some produce neurotransmitters, others affect hormones like ghrelin, which makes you hungry, and leptin, which makes you full. When certain bacteria thrive, they can influence your sense of hunger, what you want, when you want it, how strongly you feel it. Imagine a patch of sugar-loving microbes. When they're well-fed, they multiply, okay? And as their numbers grow, so does their influence. They release molecules that interact with your gut lining, stimulate certain nerve endings, alter the conversation happening between belly and brain. You might feel a stronger pull towards sweet foods, not because you're weak, because a part of you, a non-human part, has learned how to nudge the system. This isn't science fiction. In one study, researchers found that certain strains of Candida and Clostridium could promote cravings for sugar and simple carbohydrates. They weren't manipulating thoughts, but they were shaping chemical signals. And you felt a craving, real, tangible, and maybe you followed it. But then something curious happens. When you change your diet, your cravings often change, too. Not just because your palate adapts, but because your microbial populations shift. When you start feeding fiber-loving bacteria with whole grains, legumes, leafy greens, they grow stronger. They ferment those fibers into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which soothe the gut lining, reduce inflammation, and, in some cases, promote feelings of calm and fullness. As these bacteria grow, they begin to outcompete the sugar lovers. They signal for different things: more fiber, more variety, more plant-rich meals, and you begin to crave those things. What once felt like a disciplined petition now feels like a desire. This is how cravings can change. Not by fighting them, but by changing the voices that whispered them. You are the host of a microbial democracy, okay? And the more balanced the population, the more balanced your desires. But this is not about good versus bad. All bacteria have a role. Even sugar-loving species have value. They aid digestion, support diversity, contribute to the ecosystem. The problem is not in their existence, it's in their dominance. When one group grows too loud, the system tips, and the signals become distorted. You might feel hungry even when nourished. You might crave things that leave you tired, foggy, inflamed, and you might blame yourself. But it's not weakness, it's chemistry, and chemistry can shift. That's why diets based on punishment rarely work. They silence the symptom, but not the signal. They restrict, but don't rebalance. The gentler path is to feed wisely, too slowly, consistently. Offer your gut what it truly needs, not to remove cravings, but to transform them. More fiber, more fermented foods, more color, more variety, and then wait. Give your microbiome time to respond, to adjust, to change the messages it sends, because it will. It always does. And what once felt like sabotage begins to feel like support. Your body starts to ask for what strengthens it. Damn, a debt. Cravings that come no longer fight you, okay? They align with you. You crave what feels good after you eat it, not just during. And in that shift, something else softens the shame, the inner critic. The part of you that believed you were broken because you couldn't say no, but you weren't broken. You were just outnumbered, and now you're in conversation. Again, some cravings are emotional, yes, tied to memories, rituals, comfort. Those matter too, but even those are shaped by the gut, because your microbes influence your mood, and mood shapes desire. A low day might bring sugar cravings, not out of indulgence, but from a dip in serotonin, partly rooted in microbial shifts. Understanding this brings gentleness. and gentleness is healing tonight. As you lie in the quiet, your microbes are working. Some are feeding, some are resting, some are sending signals upward, molecules of satiety, of calm, of memory. They don't know your name, but they help shape your experience. And when morning comes and hunger returns, you can pause and ask, who is speaking? Is this me? Is this memory? Is this habit? Is this microbe? And then you can choose, not from guilt, but from awareness. And awareness is power, because when you know that cravings have roots, you no longer fear them. You learn to listen, to feed the voices that serve you and quiet the ones that do not. You become an ecosystem in balance, and as that balance returns, so does another gift, a deeper kind of thinking, feeling, imagining, because when the belly calms, the mind begins to create, and from the silence of satiety, new question stirs. Could imagination, too, rise from the gut? The gut. Imagination feels like it lives in your head, okay? In the quiet corners behind your forehead, where daydreams flutter, okay? And sudden insights arrive like birds at a window. A melody, a sentence, it's a solution you weren't searching for. It feels mental, even mystical. But science now suggests something quieter, stranger, and deeply intimate, that your gut, with its bacterial symphony and sensory nerves, may also play a role in how your imagination works. It's not a claim of magic, it's a slow unfolding of evidence. One molecule at a time. Let's begin with mood. Creativity does not bloom well in despair. It flickers in anxiety. It hides when you're inflamed, exhausted, or foggy. In all of these states, depression, mental fatigue, emotional turbulence have been linked again and again to gut health. You've heard this before, that your microbes help make serotonin, dopamine, GABA, the brain's emotional messengers. When your microbiome is healthy, these molecules are made in abundance, contributing to emotional stability, focus, even curiosity. And curiosity is the seed of creativity. Without curiosity, the mind shrinks inward, recycles fear, rehearses problems. But when curiosity returns, the mind begins to wander, to play, to imagine, to make. In one study, researchers found that mice with a diverse gut microbiome explored more. They were more willing to investigate new spaces, objects, textures. They were, in some sense, more imaginative. Could it be that creativity begins with a willingness to explore? And could the gut be helping set that emotional tone? Let's move deeper. Your vagus nerve, that long winding bridge between brain and belly, carries more than hunger cues. It transmits information about the internal state of the body. Tension, calm, energy, safety. When that signal says, you are safe, the brain loosens its grip. It stops bracing. It stops guarding in that moment. The nervous system in rest, the breath deep and unhurried, is when many people describe their best ideas arriving. Not during stress, not during performance, but in the after, in the quiet, in the bath, the walk, the sleep. The gut helps govern this shift when inflammation is high. When the microbial signals are discordant, the vagus nerve carries warning signs, and the brain listens, tightening, narrowing its focus, conserving energy. You survive, but you don't create. But when the gut is balanced, when microbial diversity flourishes, the vagus signals safety, and the brain opens its hands. Imagination returns. Then there's the matter of metabolites, tiny chemical byproducts made by gut bacteria as they digest your food. Some of these metabolites cross the blood-brain barrier. They affect memory, motivation, mood. They influence how brain cells talk to each other. They can also reduce neuroinflammation. One of the silent forces that dull mental sharpness. Inflamed brains don't imagine well. They repeat, they protect, they fear novelty. But calm brains, they daydream. They combine old ideas into new ones. They allow the strange to feel familiar, and a well-fed microbiome, nourished with fiber, diversity, and fermented foods, is a quiet reducer of inflammation, not directly, but steadily, like a river cleaning its banks over time. Another thread: sleep, REM sleep, the phase associated with vivid dreams, creative problem-solving, and emotional processing, is more abundant when the body rests deeply, and deep rest is easier when the gut is calm. Bloating, discomfort, silent inflammation, these are sleep stealers, and sleep, in turn, strengthens vagal tone, which enhances gut communication. It's a loop, system, an ecosystem, and when it's in harmony, the mental skies clear, ideas rise from fog, connections form across memories, colors return, we begin to imagine again. Even intuition, that mysterious gut feeling, may be partly microbial. The enteric nervous system, your second brain, processes its own stimuli. It's influenced by microbial signals, and it feeds directly into your sense of comfort or unease. When your gut is balanced, those signals are more accurate, more subtle, more trustworthy, and creativity thrives when the body feels honest, when there is space to trust a hunch, to follow a thread that doesn't yet make sense. Some people say their best ideas come after a long walk, or a bowl of soup, or a quiet meal shared with someone they love. They don't mention bacteria, but the bacteria are there, working silently, calming the gut, soothing the nerves, clearing space in the mind. Of course, the gut doesn't make paintings, the ton, write poems, or compose symphonies, but it supports the conditions under which those things become possible. It is the soil beneath the tree, the silence before the sound. And when the soil is rich, the air is calm, and the old roots are not inflamed, new branches reach outward, the imagination stretches, the inner world opens. And so the question becomes, what can you offer your body to invite imagination back? A slower meal, okay? A day without processed sugar, a night with early sleep, okay? Before the next distraction, and maybe a bit of wonder, because your gut isn't just a tube, it's a biosphere, creative partner you didn't know you had, and every decision you make, every bite, every breath affects its rhythm. So tonight, as you rest, the microbial world inside you continues its work. It does not dream, but it makes dreaming easier. It does not invent, but it helps you access the part of yourself that does. And somewhere in the quiet folds of your small intestine, a bacterial strain breaks down fiber into a molecule that will, by morning, help regulate the neurons in your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain where ideas collide and combine. You may not feel it, but you will sense it in the ease of your thoughts, in the tilt of your attention, in the unexpected connection between two memories that suddenly make something new. And in that space, you begin again, not as one mind, but as a system, a host, a home. And just beyond that burst of quiet creativity, a deeper layer of communication is forming. The way your gut teaches your immune system what is safe and what must be defended. Your immune system is not a battlefield. It is a language your body uses to ask, is this safe? Okay. Is this still safe? Okay. Every day, quietly, constantly, your cells whisper this question into the bloodstream, and every day, the gut answers, not with certainty, but with judgment, with nuance, with memory. This is not abstract. Over 70% of your immune cells reside in or around your gut, not by accident, but because your gut is the place where the outside world meets your inner world most directly. Every bite of food, every swallow, every sip, every microbe you breathe in or swallow passes through this winding tunnel lined with immune sentinels. But here's the quiet wonder. Your immune system does not work alone. It is trained, it's tempered, and constantly informed by your microbiome. From the moment you are born, the bacteria in your gut begin shaping your immune responses, teaching your cells what counts as friend, what counts as foe, and when to stand down. This teaching is not aggressive. It is not a war game. It's more like gardening. Your microbes help prune immune overgrowth, okay? produce molecules like butyrate and propionate, short-chain fatty acids that nourish your gut lining and reduce inflammatory signals. They send messages to T cells, to macrophages, to dendritic cells, saying, in effect, not this, not now. Stay calm, and the immune system listens, or tries to. When the microbiome is diverse, resilient, and well-fed, these calming messages flow smoothly. The result? Acute inflammation is kept in check. Your gut wall remains sealed, and your immune responses stay proportional, active, but not panicked, vigilant, but not overwhelmed. But when the microbial balance shifts, when too many species vanish, or one aggressive strain blooms, unchecked, the immune system becomes confused. It loses its rhythm, it becomes hyperreactive, firing at harmless proteins, flaring over small intrusions. This is systemic inflammation. It's not the kind you see with fever and swelling, but the quiet, background kind that whispers its way into everything, and the mind is not spared. Depression is no longer seen as just a chemical imbalance in the brain. It is now understood to involve immune activation, and some people, inflammatory cytokines, the immune system's messenger molecules, are elevated in depressive states. These cytokines can pass into the brain to affect how neurons fire. They reduce the availability of neurotransmitters like serotonin. They slow neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells. They increase fatigue. They fog memory. And sometimes they originate in the gut, not directly, but through leaky gut, a condition in which inflammation loosens the tight junctions between intestinal cells, allowing bacterial fragments and food particles to enter the bloodstream. The immune system sees these and panics. It releases cytokines. The brain receives the signals. Mood drops. Energy dims. Thoughts flatten. The body, trying to protect itself, creates a fog. It's not betrayal. It's miscommunication. The gut, once balanced, is no longer sending the right signals. The immune system, once calm, is now on high alert, and the brain feels the cost. But this is not destiny. It is a state, and states can change. Restoring microbial balance can slowly retrain the immune system, not by force, but by feeding peace, fermented foods, plant fiber, polyphenols from colorful fruits and vegetables. These encourage microbial diversity, which helps restore the gentle diplomacy between gut and immune cells. Regular sleep, movement, breath work, laughter, these all calm the vagus nerve, which in turn modulates inflammation. Even touch, yes, simple human touch has been shown to reduce immune overactivation and improve gut barrier integrity. This is the new science of immunopsychiatry, a field exploring how the immune system and mental health are deeply entwined, and your microbiome is at the heart of that connection. Your gut is not just digesting food. It is managing peace talks between your immune cells and your nervous system. When that process is nourished, the mind begins to clear. You feel less foggy, more grounded, more able to return to yourself, and you don't need perfection to begin. You just need consistency. Start with your meals. Add color, add fiber, add a spoonful of something living, yogurt, miso, kimchi. Create rhythms. Let your gut rest at night. Let your mind drift. Give your microbes time to repair what stress has shaken. And perhaps, as you lie here now, you can feel the faint outline of your immune self, not the one that fights colds, but the one that helps you feel calm when the world feels sharp. Because a peaceful gut makes a peaceful immune system, and a peaceful immune system gives rise to a clearer mind. Not every sadness is microbial. Not every illness is immune, but many more than we once thought begin in that quiet place between cells, between species, between messages. So tonight, your microbes continue their work. Some are digesting fiber, producing short-chain fatty acids that calm inflammation and help neurons fire more gently. Others are talking to your immune cells, reminding them that tonight is not a night to fight. that tonight is a night to rest, to drift, to trust. And just as that conversation fades into quiet, another cycle begins, the slow rebuilding of your internal world after stress, after chaos, after harm. Because what is broken can be rebuilt, and what is inflamed can learn to soften. A forest after fire does not regrow in a day. The ash settles. The wind carries seeds. The rain returns. And then, almost invisibly, life begins again. Tiny shoots push through blackened soil. Insects crawl back. Roots stretch quietly beneath the surface. At first, the land looks barren, but beneath the stillness, something is rebuilding. Your microbiome is like that forest. It may be burned by illness, flattened by antibiotics, thinned by years of stress, lack of sleep, nutrient-poor food, or isolation. It may seem, for a while, that balance is lost, that diversity is gone, that something inside you has gone quiet. But life, even microbial life, is patient, and the gut remembers how to heal. It remembers what it was. It remembers the species that once flourished, the rhythms that once supported growth. All it needs is time and the right invitations, because your gut is not empty, even at its most depleted. It holds the memory of balance. The remaining microbes, the survivors, become the roots of something new. They wait for signals, a new source of fiber, a spoon of fermented vegetables, shift in breath, a longer night's sleep. And with those signals, they stir, they divide, they make space. They build a new network across the soft walls of your intestines. Rebuilding begins slowly. At first, you may not feel it. You may still bloat, still tire, easily still feel cravings that pull you off center, but beneath the symptoms, a quiet rewelding is happening. The gut lining repairs itself, cell by cell. The mucus layer thickens again, protecting the wall, feeding certain bacteria that can only live in that slippery, secret habitat. Old friends return, perhaps from fermented foods, perhaps from soil, perhaps from skin-to-skin contact with another person whose microbes blend with yours. These newcomers don't arrive with fanfare. They arrive as helpers. They colonize empty spaces, outcompete pathogens, and begin producing the metabolites your immune system had forgotten to expect. But healing is not linear. Some days feel worse before they feel better. As the microbiome reshuffles, gas may increase, fatigue may fluctuate, toxins released by dying bacteria may temporarily overwhelm your system. This is not failure. It is the sound of adaptation, of a system trying to remember its own complexity. There are names for this in nature: ecological, succession, resilience, regrowth. But in your body, it feels more intimate, like waking up after a long illness and not quite recognizing your reflection, but trusting that something is coming back. Supporting this process means becoming a gentle steward of your internal world. That begins with nourishment, not just more food, but the right kinds, diverse plant fibers, fruits with skins intact, whole grains with their original complexity. Each one feeds a different strain, and together, those strains weave a stronger web. Variety is not luxury, strategy. The more different microbes you host, the more adaptable your gut becomes. The better it handles stress, digests its meals, regulates mood, and protects your boundaries, both biological and emotional. Next comes fermented foods, but not too fast. Start small. Let the new bacteria arrive quietly. Give your immune system time to reacquaint itself with old friends. 1 spoon of sauerkraut, 1 sip of kefir, 1 bowl of miso broth, not to flood the system, but to invite life back in. Then there is movement. Gentle, rhythmic movement helps your gut move too. Walking, stretching, yoga. These don't just strengthen muscles, they stimulate digestion, reduce stress hormones, and increase blood flow to your microbiome's home. Sleep matters too. Deep, consistent rest is when your gut repairs its lining, when microbial populations rebalance, when inflammation softens. Even your thoughts contribute. Stress alters the gut. It slows motility. It changes which microbes thrive. It weakens the barrier between body and world. But calm invites resilience. Breathing deeply recruits the vagus nerve. It's that long messenger between brain and belly. And when it hums in, its gentle rhythm, it tells the gut, you are safe. You can heal now. This healing doesn't always announce itself. It shows up in subtler ways. A clearer mind after waking. A meal that doesn't leave discomfort. Steadier mood after stress. A return of curiosity. A loosening of cravings that once felt like chains. These are the signs that your ecosystem, though once wounded, is growing green again. Your microbes are not only survivors, they are architects. They rebuild community. Hey, communicate with immune cells, with neurons, with hormones. They shape how you absorb nutrients, how you think, how you feel. And like any forest, their health depends on balance, not perfection. Some weeds are part of the landscape. Some invasive species remain in small pockets. But as long as the whole community holds, you stay resilient. There is no endpoint, only maintenance, only care. And in that care, a relationship deepens between you and your unseen citizens. You no longer see food only as fuel. You see it as communication. You no longer treat stress like a personal failing. You recognize its effects on the tiniest systems in your body. And when you feel off, you don't panic. You listen. You give your microbes what they need. And they respond, not with gratitude, but with stability. So, tonight, as your body sinks into the mattress and your thoughts begin to slow, know that deep inside you, a forest is returning. The roots are holding. The pathways are clearing. The balance is restoring. And even if you feel nothing, even if the changes are too quiet to name, your microbiome is working not just to digest, but to rebuild the rhythm that helps you be fully human. And just beyond that quiet growth, something else waits, a truth about diversity and why the more life you host within you, the stronger you become. Resilience does not mean being unbreakable. It means knowing how to bend, how to respond, shift, and recover. You've seen resilience in trees that sway during storms, in rivers that reroute around obstacles, in skin that heals after a scrape. But did you know resilience lives inside you at a scale too small to see? It lives in your microbiome. Its most powerful expression is diversity. A diverse microbiome is not just a collection of many species. It's a living network where hundreds, sometimes thousands of microbial types balance, support, and regulate one another. Each one brings something unique. Some break down fibers, some help create neurotransmitters, some fight pathogens, some soothe inflammation. No one strain does it all, but together they build a system that can withstand change. This is the secret to microbial strength, not uniformity, but variety. It's not unlike a rainforest. In a diverse forest, if one tree species falls to disease, others fill the gap. The system bends, but it doesn't collapse. In a monoculture, where only one or two species dominate, a single disruption can trigger ruin. Your gut is the same. The more types of bacteria you carry, the better your system adapts to stress, illness, diet shifts, or emotional upheaval. You become more resilient, not just physically, but mentally, because your microbes influence your mood, your focus, your capacity to calm after stress. And the key to that influence isn't just the presence of a few good bacteria. It's the richness of the whole ecosystem. Science backs this in study after study. People with more diverse microbiomes report better emotional regulation, less anxiety, less depression, and stronger cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift thoughts, adapt to change, problem solve calmly. It's not just a trait. It's a reflection of inner biology. Let's look at one example. In a 2020 study, researchers analyzed stool samples from healthy adults, measuring microbial diversity and comparing it to psychological data. They found that participants with higher gut diversity were more likely to have positive emotional patterns, greater gratitude, stronger social bonds, less rumination. Their minds didn't just think differently. They felt differently in deeper, more connected ways. Why does diversity shape emotion? Because a richer microbiome produces a wider range of molecules, neurotransmitters, anti-inflammatory agents, hormonal modulators, immune balancers. These chemical messengers don't just stay in the gut. They circulate through your bloodstream, interact with your nervous system, and influence the tone of your thoughts. And perhaps, even more subtly, diversity protects against overreaction. In a less diverse gut, single, disruptive food or stressful event can throw the system off. But in a diverse gut, the network compensates. One species falters, another steps in. The system absorbs the change. This is biological resilience, a kind of internal wisdom, self-healing rhythm built through exposure to variety. So how do you build diversity? You start with your plate, eat the rainbow. Different bacteria thrive on different compounds. Blueberries feed one group, tells another. Garlic, onions, leafy greens, beans, mushrooms. Each supports a different population. The more colors, textures, and types of fiber you eat, the more species you support. And not just plant fiber, fermented foods matter too. They don't just introduce new bacteria, they create a more welcoming environment for native strains to flourish. Then there's the outside world. People who spend time in nature tend to have more microbial diversity. Soil, trees, wind, they all carry invisible passengers. Your ancestors lived in contact with the land. Their immune systems and microbes co-evolved with dust, dirt, and animal microbes. A little mess is not the enemy. Sometimes it's medicine. And then there's connection, social touch, shared meals, pets, partners, all help exchange microbes. Loneliness has been linked not just to sadness, but to microbial thinning. A diverse life is not just one of many foods. It is one of many relationships, but building diversity also requires restraint, not from food, but from over-sanitization, from unnecessary antibiotics, from ultra-processed diets that favor only a few microbial types. These choices simplify your inner world. And simplification, over time, leads to fragility. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be varied. Like any ecosystem, your microbiome needs challenge to become strong, and emotional resilience grows from this biological base. Have you ever noticed how some days, small problem derails everything, while other days, you absorb the same stress with grace? Sometimes, the difference isn't just in your thoughts, it's in your gut. When your microbiome is calm and diverse, communicates that calm to your immune system, which signals safety to your brain. You process emotions differently. You recover faster. You reframe instead of ruminate. This doesn't mean your microbes replace your mind. It means they support it. Your body is not just a reflection of your choices. The T's is a co-author, and your microbiome may be the quietest, most faithful collaborator of all tonight. As you lie still, your inner force continues to grow, perhaps slowly, taps invisibly, but with every breath, every moment of rest, your microbes repair, replicate, realign, and if you've been sick, if you've felt stuck, if your thoughts have been heavy, know this: you are not broken, you are rebuilding. Your diversity may have dipped, but life returns. It always does. From one seed, from one bite, from one choice to care, and tomorrow, perhaps without even noticing, you may respond to stress with just a bit more calm. You may notice a moment of joy you might have missed before. That is your resilience returning, your ecosystem learning to bend again. And just beyond that quiet strength, a larger realization begins to rise. that all of these lives inside you have always been part of what you call you. You. You think of yourself as one thing, a single name, a single body, singular, private mind. You say, I feel, I think, I hurt, I hope, okay. And yet, beneath your skin, you are not alone. You are a host, a habitat, okay, a walking universe. Inside, you live trillions of microbes, bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea, some on your skin, some in your mouth, many in your gut, and all of them part of the story you call self. You are not one. You are many, and the lines between you and them are not as clear as they seem. These microbes are not passive. They are not guests. They digest your food, train your immune system, make vitamins, create hormones, communicate with your brain, influence your moods. They even help decide how you respond to stress, how you remember things, what you crave, how deeply you sleep, and they change. Over your lifetime, your microbiome shifts with age, okay? Environment, relationships. The microbes in your gut at 6 months old are not the same as the ones there now, but some have stayed. Some strains have traveled with you since birth, through school, through heartbreak, through illness and love. Always adjusting, always listening. Your identity is code-authored. It is written in both human cells and microbial ones, in DNA and in dialogue, because every day your body and your microbes are in quiet conversation. They speak in chemicals. They negotiate peace. They adapt. Your brain may lead, but your gut responds. And together, they shape how you feel, not just physically, emotionally. EXISTENTIALLY. And when you pause, and you really feel into your body, you might sense this: the warmth in your belly, the stillness after food, the strange calm that sometimes appears when nothing else has changed. That's them, helping. We once thought of microbes only as threats, bacteria as enemies, germs as invaders. We sterilized, we sanitized, we feared. But now we know, without them, we fall apart. Mice raised in sterile environments are anxious. Their immune systems are disoriented. Their brains are underdeveloped. They are not sick, but they are not well. We need our microbes, not just for digestion, for identity. In fact, the human body has more microbial DNA than human DNA. If you measured all the genes in your body, only a small percentage would come from your human cells. The rest, they come from the organisms that live inside you, and yet they don't feel foreign. They feel like you, because they are. This is not a loss of self. It is a broadening of it. You are not smaller for being shared. You are larger, more complex, more alive, and your body is not a machine, but an ecosystem. It breathes, it listens, it adapts, and it holds within it a galaxy of life. Every time you eat, you're not just feeding yourself, you're feeding your microbiome. Every time you rest, your microbes use that time to repair, to balance, to restore. Every time you feel something deeply, they feel it too, through hormone shifts, through nervous system cues, through subtle changes in your chemistry. They don't understand sadness, but they sense its biology. They don't understand joy, but they move in its glow. They live in your shadows. They dance in your warmth. They die and replicate by the millions each hour. And through it all, they carry you, through illness, through healing, through change. They remind you that health is not a destination, but a relationship between you and your inner world, between host and guest, between organism and ecosystem. And like any relationship, it requires care, not control, not punishment. Attention, attention. Varied plate, a slower breath, a moment of stillness, a laugh, a touch, a nap in the sun. These are not luxuries. They are nourishment for the many lives that keep you whole. And when something feels off, when your energy dips, your thoughts cloud, when your digestion falters, your microbes may be the first to notice. They don't cry out. They signal through cravings, inflammation, mood shifts. They're not betraying you. They're asking for help. And the help they need is often gentle. More fiber, more color, more rest, more time between stressors, more rhythm, more repair. Because even after imbalance, after illness, after antibiotics, after loss, they can return. The forest can regrow. The system can restabilize. Okay? The dialogue can soften. This is the promise of life. It's not permanence, but resilience. And resilience doesn't mean you never fall. It means you know how to rise. Your microbes know how to rise. They've been doing it for billions of years, across oceans, across species, across time. You carry that lineage. You carry that wisdom. You carry that life. So tonight, as the lights dim, as your thoughts grow slow, as your breath lengthens, remember this. You are not just a person. You are a plural. You are a collaboration. You are a walking community. And that community is working now, digesting, repairing, calming, restoring balance. You don't have to manage it. You don't have to control it. You just have to care for it with patience, with kindness, trust, because every breath you take carries oxygen to them, too. Every slow exhale gives them the signal that it's safe, and they respond with molecules of peace, with neurotransmitters of rest, with a chemistry of home. You are one, and also many, and you are never alone. Not now, not even in sleep, not even in silence. You are a universe of many, and tonight, every part of you is gently, quietly carrying the rest.